Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. My name is Nasser Deeb. I'm the president of Halal Expo Canada and Halal Expo Philippines. I'm also going to be your moderator for today. Just to give you a quick, we are the organizer of the two shows that we started. The first one in Canada in 2019 and the recent one in Philippines in November. And we are excited to have all of you with us, and we appreciate your time, especially with people with different time zone. We appreciate you joining us today. And I would like to just to say that this webinar to achieve our dream is to be unified with the rest of the world. Some practices are being followed through international standard, but we still are a long way to go. We need to keep collaborating with different organizations and different stakeholders globally. And the reason why I brought you all together to shed light from Canada perspective and from the global perspective. I have experts here on the panel, and I'm happy to see them again because they're all friends I've been known for some time, and we will uh, just to give you an idea, we were discussing a different points. I have shared that with you, from understanding halal certification in Canada to global halal certification practices, and to toward standardization or standardized global halal certification system, to case studies and best practices, and all these things that we're going to be joining. So today I have uh, um, different panelists. I have Dewi from Singapore. I have Melody from Argentina. I have Omar Subedar from HMA. I have Atty. Linzag from Philippines. I have Tony from Canada. And I would like to give them a brief time to, I'll also Musaab from Canada as well. I will give them each one a short time to introduce himself briefly and let the audience know uh, what they do, the name and what they do, and just a quick words. And if anybody have to share something interesting in their career on halal or how they came about, it would be great as well. So I start with Atty. Linzag to give us a quick introduction about himself and about his company.
Thank you, Brother Gibbs. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah to all our brothers, sisters, and of course, all the listeners now or viewers of our program worldwide. I want to express my heartfelt thanks, of course, first to the Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to provide us this opportunity to be together at this moment in time, wherever you are. So, also, it goes to, of course, the organizer who started this program, which is really worthwhile. Even considering, first and foremost, the fact that Islam is universal religion and it is applicable to all, and that we are talking now about what is in Islam religion. That's why our organization, Islamic Dawah Council of the Philippines, was the first one to be approached to do the certification in 1987. So that time we were hesitant to accept the responsibility of certifying. But after all, and after several discussions, several coming back to the topic, I realized that it's part of Dawah. We are mandated as a Muslim organization, we are mandated to verify the truth of what we are taking, food, what we are supplying to the Muslim world. Food coming from the Philippines, for example, what are these food? Is this applicable to the Ummah? This is what that's why we started this halal certification since then up to now. So, you know, as Brother Deeb mentioned, I am the president of Islamic Dawah Council of the Philippines. Islamic Dawah is now 48 years old, 44 years old. And then the halal certification was about more than 40 or 37 years already. We are certifying. And we have problems in the Philippines because our government just in the same manner that Muslim or Islam was the object of proselytization by non-Muslims in this country, when they found that we are rising up through halal, our government wants to take it out from us. And they are initiating it. Until now, we are still wrestling, even if we have the decision of the Supreme Court that IDCP is the official certification body that can validate and testify that the product is halal. That's issued in 2003. But until now, government is still insisting that they will do the certification. They are using Muslim brothers and sisters to insist to do it in the name of the Philippine government. And that's why this is, to me, this is a corruption of our own religion. And we have to do it as a matter of obligation as a Muslim. Now, going back to the issue of halal, I'm happy that Brother Deeb from Australia and some brothers also from other parts of the world are doing the same work that we are doing. What is this work? This is to validate and in the name of our religion and in the name of God, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, pursuant to our shahada, to testify that certain products are halal. And when we do that, it should be credible, it should be authoritative, should be transparent and authentic. Sure. So this is what we are. So wherever this product will go, our individual logo is there. Now, the problem now is unity. How can we unify ourselves? Because we are unified actually as a Muslim. It is inherent that as Muslim we are unified. But the problem is there are forces that are separating us. This is by greed, by individual interests, by especially done by those consumers who have the means to control our situation.
We will touch upon this. Thank you so much, Tony Linzag. We will touch upon those areas that we have an agenda on. But I appreciate all your introduction. It was really nice of you. Thank you so much for letting us know. Now we will we'll ask Omar Subedar to give us a brief introduction about himself and about what he represents.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Good evening or good morning, wherever you are in the world, and thank you for joining us. My name is Omar Subedar. I am one of the founders of the Canadian Council of Muslim Theologians and also one of the people who established the department of that very organization called the Halal Monitoring Authority back in 2006. And alhamdulillah, 19 years have now gone by. And there's a lot of progress that we have seen within the halal industry. Definitely, I can say that the opportunities now in halal are far greater than what for my children than what it was for me when I was growing up here in Canada. So it's a very a proud moment for all of us to see the growth of halal within Canada, within North America. And it's been an honor to serve this industry for almost 2 decades now. And I look forward to this very eventful evening, inshallah.
Tony, can you please go ahead?
Sure, thanks, Brother Nasser. My name is Tony Aziz. Assalamu alaikum to everyone. Like Brother Omar Subedar said, whether it's evening or morning for you, thank you to everyone joining us here today for this important topic about the unification of halal standards. I'm the CEO and co-owner of the Amir group of companies. I joined Amir, actually, Brother Nasser and I were having this chat earlier, after 2 decades with IBM. As they say, I traded in data for drumsticks, and now in the agricultural space and poultry. The Amir group of companies is really three entities. We have a slaughter facility and two further processing facilities, which allows us to be vertically integrated and allows us to have visibility through the whole supply chain. We are completing our upgrade of our federal processing facility, which will allow us to be the first vertically integrated, federally regulated, Muslim-owned and operated slaughter facility in Canada. So excited to be part of this panel here and looking forward to the discussion this evening.
Thank you so much, Tony. Musaab, can you give us a quick brief and unmute yourself?
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Yes, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. My name is Musaab Maniar, and I work for ISNA Canada. ISNA Canada has been one of the oldest Islamic organizations in North America, and the Halal department itself was started back in 1987, and it has been serving the community for more than 35 years. I joined Halal certification better part, I think, almost 9 years ago. So alhamdulillah, I've been and I'm currently working as the quality control and regulatory affairs in that department.
Thank you so much. Melody?
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, everyone. I'm speaking from Argentina, from Latin America. It's 10 p.m. In the evening. I'm so glad to be here. I represent the Halal Catering in Argentina, which is a halal certification body that started as a dream from a Lebanese immigrant, a Muslim Lebanese immigrant that came to Argentina. And after 60 years of existence, we still cooperating and certifying and assuring that the products that are made in this wonderful country goes to the Islamic market according to the law and the standards that should to be respected. And alhamdulillah, we have confirmed our halal auditors, Sharia departments, and all the departments according to have a halal certification body. So I'm glad that tonight, for me, I will share some thoughts from this part of the world.
Thank you so much, Melody. Dewi?
Okay, hello everyone. It's 9 a.m. here. I'm based here in Singapore. A bit of an introduction about myself. I'm the CEO and founder of Dawn Horizon, a company that is helping companies in this region. We are focusing right now here in Asia to go halal. So we are very much involved in advising the governments in the likes of countries that we're focusing on right now, with the likes of Vietnam, Cambodia, even Hong Kong, try to see how we can collectively work with them to develop the halal ecosystem. I was actually formerly from MUIS. MUIS is the Islamic Religious Council of Singapore, a government agency in Singapore, where I spent the last 20 years there. I was involved in halal certification, administering halal, developing standards, working with both government and non-government organizations in this region and other parts of the world to get halal to be formally recognized through free trade agreements, MRAs, MOUs, and what have you. So I come here with a view of the perspective of administering halal in a Muslim minority context. Because here in Singapore, we are a small community. Muslims here just make up about 15% of our total population. But Singapore has started halal certification as early as 1978. Yeah, so right now, actually, Singapore is one of the countries under the top 10 of the Global Islamic Economy Indicator. So I hope to be able to share some of our little experiences, the challenges that we face, and how we actually sort of maneuver those challenges. And I hope, that will be useful for our friends over there in Canada. Yeah, thank you.
So much. Ihsan, can you say a few words, or is it still difficult?
No, thank you very much. My name is Ihsan. I'm Secretary General of SMIIC. Thank you for this arrangement. We could not be on time because my flight from Chicago to Istanbul starts at the same time. I'm not in the plane. I'm now in the plane. I will follow all discussion. If any question rises to me, I will answer. I'm very happy to be in this important team all around the world, from Argentina to Philippines. All are good. Have good friends for doing halal activities. Some is for certification, some for the trade, some is for the Expo, etc. Best all of you, inshallah, we will together be more cooperative and help each other. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Thank you so much.
Alaikum salam.
And thank you everyone for giving us a brief and tell us what you do. We are very excited to have you on board. We just gonna touch upon different areas I discussed earlier. We will be there are so many things that we need to understand about the certification in Canada because we are not as old as other countries when it comes to certification. We are trying very hard to keep it halal for all our generation to come. There are major certification bodies in Canada, as we mentioned, like HMA, FANCA, HMCA, ISNA. These are the major ones, and we have smaller ones. But what we're trying to do is we're trying to unify all the practices. I know that the big five or the big four are in line with a lot of the international standard, but we want everybody to follow that. Hopefully, that's the dream that we're trying to achieve. And we just wanted to first touch upon in Canada in particular, and then we will start asking the international experts. Brother Omar and Musaab, and then Tariq, we will give us some ideas about the process of approving a product, a halal products. Can we start with Omar Subedar? Just to give us a quick background on how the process of approving halal products goes from your perspective.
Bismillah. So that's a very broad question because the first question is like, which product are we looking at? Are we going to be looking at meat products, non-meat products, and within the meat products, like which species are we going to be looking at? So it's a very broad question. The easiest way I can answer it within the limited time that we have is that first and foremost, there have to be guidelines that are going to be formulated. And when it comes to the guidelines of halal, one thing we have to understand that halal is a fiqh-related issue. Right? It's related to Islamic jurisprudence. And when it comes to Islamic fiqh, depending on what principles are going to be adopted, right, there's going to be different conclusions that will be coming out from different bodies. So I know we're going to be discussing unifying global standards, but just like, when it comes to Islamic fiqh, we have in the Sunni tradition 4 madhabs, and within the madhabs, you're going to have many sub-madhabs. And that all goes down again based on whether a particular ruling is going to be concrete and it's going to be stagnant for all time, or is it going to be something that is changeable, it's malleable, depending on the situation and the condition of the time. The one thing that we do have to come to an understanding with is that many of the fiqh rulings when it comes to Islamic slaughter, let's look at Islamic slaughter, for example. When we're looking at classical literature, we're looking at pre-industrial rulings that were given at a time when this system that you and I today are a part of never existed. And till date, a comprehensive book on post-industrial slaughter, post-industrial halal practices has not been prepared. Yeah, issues have been discussed, but when I say comprehensive, the way our predecessors used to go into one particular area of life and just write everything that they could, on that particular topic. That still is yet to happen in a post-industrial phase. So now where you're going to have differences in the way you go about certifying is, what's your reference point? Right? Is the reference point going to be something that's pre-industrial, or is it going to be ijtihad based? And if that ijtihad is going to go on, what's the end objective? What's the end goal? So to say that, how do we go about certifying? Yes, we're going to have to agree on some guidelines, and then we're going to have to ensure that whatever we're going to certify is consistent with those guidelines. Now, whether it's guidelines for beverages, whether it's going to be guidelines for pharmaceuticals, makeup, whatever, cosmetics, there's going to be a whole plethora of guidelines, and we just have to ensure that prior to putting our stamp on anything and approving it, it's consistent with those very guidelines.
Okay. It's interesting. I understand it wasn't really broad, because we just wanted to see if it's something like similar to what the international are following, and how things are missing, or things that we lack of from the government or from other things, like the compliance. You mentioned about the Sharia, but the compliance with the government, and there are certain things. Maybe Musaab can.
So I just wanted to quickly add, sorry for that, when we say international, we do also have to understand that there's going to be a difference between a Muslim majority world and Muslim minority. And for Muslim majority countries, where primarily everything is going to be stemming somewhat from a Shari'i standpoint, depending on what the Sharia is going to be there's going to be far more consistency with pre-industrial practices and less pressure, as opposed to those who are now, as a Muslim minority in a country where there's already set practices, a set direction, it's secular, and even the standards of what will be classified as animal welfare vary. Our standards in Islam, what we classify as animal welfare, is at odds with what a secular system will classify as animal welfare. So these realities need to be understood. So there's going to be complications that we have, say, for example, here in Canada, that you're not going to find in the Middle East, right? And then how do you address those complications? One is to completely now walk away, and as a result, we've put our community in a state of haraj, or we see how can we work within these parameters, and try our best to come to the best solution that we can.
MashaAllah. Musaab, can you tell us about your experience when you, as Brother Sheikh Omar mentioned, about certain things that we can do in the Middle East, but we cannot do here, or we cannot, or not can be accepted in the society of Canada, certain practices. Can you tell us a little bit of that, Musaab?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless our honorable Sheikh Omar Subedar. He's our teacher and our guide as well. So may Allah preserve him. And majority of the things that the Sheikh mentioned, I do agree with. There are issues and factors that do come into play, and to which viewpoint you take in terms of certifying a certain products. However, coming to your question as to the experiences that we face here, a lot of red tape that we face in Canada comes from how the government perceives as to what the animal welfare or certain food safety standards are. So when we try to put that into Islamic's perspective, it sort of causes a clash regarding on how to comply our religion, as well as try to comply with the Canadian society as well. So we try to make the companies understand and work with them so that we come to a common point, so that we can comply with the standards within Canada, as well as comply with the Sharia perspective as well.
MashaAllah. So, Tony, listening to both certifiers that you already know them very well, from a producer or from a slaughterhouse / producer supplier of meat, How do you see these challenges that they mentioned? Do you feel something when you are trying to overcome some of the obstacles that they were talking about? Do you sense that?
Yeah, yeah, certainly. I mean, the challenge is like the Sheikh talked about, trying to fit the Islamic perspective or rules into the society we live in North America here, for example, right? So, yeah, there are challenges, and you do end up with different interpretations of the religion, and as a result, different certifying bodies that you can turn to. So that certainly makes it challenging when you are trying to put product out there ultimately for the consumer to try and figure out, which one of these halal certifying bodies or logos is the right one, the most authentic one. So it does make it confusing, I think, and challenging for businesses and ultimately the consumers when you don't have that one unifying halal standard or symbol. Having said that, because of everything they talked about, it is extremely challenging to do that when you are not in a Muslim majority country, when you are in a minority country.
Interesting. So, jumping to the international, and you've been listening to our local stakeholders here. Dewi, I wanted you to also share from your region, the ASEAN region, when you're listening to the three gentlemen here talking about their challenges. How do you see that from your perspective? Can you maybe share some experience and maybe challenge and so we can maybe learn something or something that we don't know about?
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much. I actually see a lot of similarities with what we have in this region. So, the experience I had back then representing Singapore in the ASEAN working group on halal food. So what happened is there is actually an economic bloc called the ASEAN Working Group on Halal Food that was formed sometime as early as 1998. At that point in time, okay, ASEAN, as we all know, it comprises 10 member states, and you have both Muslim minority and Muslim majority countries, right? The likes of Muslim majority Indonesia, Malaysia, Muslim minority, most of them are like Singapore, the Philippines, Cambodia, Laos, PDR, so on and so forth. Right. So back then in the late 90s, there was actually an effort to sort of harmonize halal standards within ASEAN itself. So they were talking about, oh, let's have an ASEAN halal standard. Let's have an ASEAN halal logo. But after a lot of discussion amongst the ASEAN member states, they realized that it is actually a very tough endeavor for a few reasons. One is within those countries, okay, we look at ASEAN itself in terms of the level of maturity of halal in those markets do differ from country to country. So you have the more established ones that started much earlier, Malaysia, Indonesia, even Singapore, and we have the ones that are relatively more nascent, to halal. So some of them may not even have a halal standard. So to have a harmonized halal standard across ASEAN, it was actually very difficult. And we also acknowledge that different countries have their own fatwas or religious rulings, we call it. Case in point, Brunei doesn't allow for animal stunning, but the rest of the countries actually do allow for animal stunning. All right. So the question would be, how then, do we as an ASEAN bloc, work together to sort of facilitate the trade of halal products intra-ASEAN, also from ASEAN to other countries, whilst at the same time to sort of respect each other's differences. We're not saying that you're more Muslim or, than me or vice versa, but we all acknowledge that there are, like what Brother Omar mentioned, there are different Islamic school of thoughts, and, we sort of, respect one another in terms of our various religious rulings. So the evolution to that was from the thinking of having an ASEAN halal standard to eventually what we have now, we call it ASEAN halal guidelines. So by guidelines, it means to say that each member state, you can have your own standard, but you can always refer to this, broader guideline, when you actually formulate your standard. Because as if, if your standard is as close as possible to the guidelines, high chance that your products can also be accepted by the other ASEAN member states. Yeah. So the experience that I had over in Singapore when I was developing the Singapore MUIS halal standards, that was what we did. We develop our standards. We have our own, religious rulings because, there's a fatwa committee within MUIS itself. But we also made reference to various other standards, ASEAN halal guidelines being one of it. We also look at Malaysian standards because Malaysia is actually one of the key trading partners of Singapore. So we have to ensure that our products also do get accepted in countries such as that. Yeah. So we took all this, we will blend it and we call it uniquely Singapore. And whilst that happened, yes, we can have ASEAN halal guidelines, but these courses like this will have to continue. Reasons why, because we also have to understand what are some of the differences that you may have. So for example, whilst Malaysia can actually accept, as of now, they do recognize MUIS's or Singapore's halal standards or halal certification, there are certain products, where there are special standards. Okay, so example, like meat and meat-based products that are exported to Malaysia, even though JAKIM has recognized MUIS's halal certificate, but they still come to Singapore to actually audit. Reason why? Because their laws require abattoirs, outside the country itself to actually be accredited by the Department of Veterinary Services. They don't issue a certificate, but they just ensure that it's in alignment with their own national standards. Yeah. So at the end of it, the conclusion is that, we can talk about harmonization, but harmonization doesn't necessarily mean uniformity. It's really about mutual trust, mutual understanding, and having and understanding our context. And at the end of it, it's not a copy and paste, all right? It's about, what works for your country, not only, in terms of ensuring alignment to, Islamic jurisprudence and all that, but also ensuring coherence with some of the regulations. Because I know of some countries where constitutionally also there's separation of church and state. I think, Brother Rahman, it happens in the case of Philippines, right? Where the government is not involved in religious matters because of the constitution itself. So understanding that all that is actually very important. And this is where I always advocate for both governments and non-government bodies to actually sit down together, to actually discuss this and to derive, a solution that at the end of it, needs to benefit the Ummah, needs to benefit the business community, and needs to benefit the country as a whole. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for sharing that knowledge. And this is interesting because I see how challenging it was in Singapore and how you guys turned it around in such a manner. Hopefully, some of us will learn about this and see how we can work together on this. Melody, as a certifier in Argentina, and you're a minority Muslim country as well, you have traveled the world, part of World Halal Council. You've seen things happening. How do you view this from your perspective? Like what we discuss as a local, certifiers and versus in Canada, and how you also being the same place.
Okay, thank you very much, Brother Nasser again. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. I think that being in a non-Muslim country is not a problem, it's an opportunity for all of us to share and to integrate the knowledge of halal, that is the knowledge for the Ummah, to the industry and to the, in our case, the Argentinian society. However, I think that when we are living in any country without accompanying the halal procedures and the halal activity, without education about it, this is from my experience, the problem that we face. What I mean, we had been listening from our brothers and sisters from countries that, for example, Singapore is not a totally a Muslim society in terms on percent of population. We know the case of the Philippines, that they don't regulate it by the government. I listen what's mentioned, Brother Tony from USA, and Sheikh Omar, Subedar, and Musaab, and yourself from Canada. We're still doing halal activity, even we have different backgrounds in the countries that we live. The stage is different. But also sometimes we find that in Muslim societies, it doesn't mean that they all know about halal. The people, the consumers, the importers. Sometimes there is a misunderstood about that. And maybe, probably, we from the West or from other countries that are not under the Sharia law, we are more involved with thanks of this kind of conversations that because we have to follow the Sharia and the Sunnah of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and according that what we learn, for example, from the World Halal Council or from any conference, as when we met Brother Nasser at the Philippines by the organization of Brother Abdul Linzag. So what I mean is that I don't think that is a negative view to live in a non-Muslim country, but yes, we have different advantages that is there where we as Muslim living in a non-Muslim countries, we have to focus to work together.
Thank you.
I mean, I can enumerate many cases that why it's difficult for us as the halal in Argentina and etc. But I had said in others conference, so I would like to give like a new perspective on it, an invitation that it's time to work. It's time to work together in what we have to do. The Muslims agencies that we are not in a Muslim countries. I give you an example. Alhamdulillah, we have SMIIC that we know how they are pushing to have a unified standards. I will not talk about SMIIC because it's not my responsibility to do it. But we are so happy when we see that all the Muslim countries or the majority Muslim countries, they reunite under the umbrella of SMIIC to push the unification of halal standards. That this is what is difficult and so hard for all of us when we have to apply for an accreditation. We have MUIS, we have Indonesia, we have Jakin, then in the GCC country, we have Saudi Arabia and Emirate and Qatar, and we know that is so hard and is a lot of money we have to invest, and we live so far from those countries, and sometimes it's really difficult to find the standards of or the halal guides from each of those countries that maybe first they send you to apply, but then they will focus on the halal guides, and you are like, okay, but which standard I have to follow? Mine standard, the standard of SMIIC, that is a point of view from everybody, or the standard of that country. So
Yes.
what I think that we may have to work together, inshallah, after this conversation is like to have like a, I'm not saying as a participant, but an observer of the meetings that are under the umbrella of SMIIC that are only for Muslim countries and is correct. But what happened with us that we are outside?
Yes, I'm trying. Thank you so much, Melody. I appreciate that because we are very short in time because we have a limited time. But I do appreciate your contribution on this, and I appreciate the fact that you shed light on some of the things that you experienced and how positive you're thinking about unifying us and taking advantage of what's permissible in our countries that we live in with the minority Muslims there. Attorney Linzag, also another big certifier from minority Muslim country. But for us, it's not minority because it's mashallah 15 million Muslim in Philippines now and exceeding. So I just wanted to listen to quickly, because we are actually a bit running out of time, because we still have more to cover. I don't know if we can cover it all, and we have the question Q&A session. So, Attorney, can you give us a bit of insight about your perspective on this matter?
I was listening to all our brothers and sisters around, and I place myself as equal footing, especially with the experience of Sheikh Omar, my brother from the World Halal Council. So, by the way, I congratulate him. He's now officer of the World Halal Council. So, anyway, our experience in Philippines is you are talking about meat, scholar. We have the same experience. We have the same problem. Our government is also putting us out of halal to make us follow the secular procedure that they have. Tanning is necessary as part of the game. And so what can we do? We have to negotiate. We have to, come closer. As long as we cannot compromise our religious requirements on halal, so that we can do that. But the problem in the Philippines is there is no slaughterhouse that is available. That's why meat problem in the Philippines is big problem, very big. We are importing the meat from non-Muslim countries as well, like Australia, like New Zealand, and hopefully we can import from Argentina or from America. But these imports are controlled also by government, and they do not require it halal. That's the problem. So the one coming to us are not really halal. So in order to do the process, we have to exert our effort as a certifier for the finished product. So we have to select who are the supplier of this, and we depend on the criteria that we use in order to validate the authenticity of this product as halal, so that we can contribute to the demand of halal worldwide. So your process of putting up this halal showcase in non-Muslim countries like Canada and Philippines, and soon with maybe with Thailand. These are nice process that we cannot do. Nobody is doing it from our side. We know that Jakim have started this process since 2004. I was one of the supporter of that program of Jakim, and so I'm happy to welcome you in the Philippines again. So I hope that this will continue, because this is the way that we could expand our halal certification to non-Muslim countries. The words of Sister from Argentina, Melody, is a very nice, very nice, and I like that. That it is an opportunity for non-Muslims to do halal, because this is what we do. We did also from the beginning to do it as part of our da'wah, so that we can expand more Muslims. We can make the non-Muslims appreciate the Muslim culture, especially now. They are now doing it. They are now demanding halal also, even in the Philippines. And so we hope we can be strong enough to maintain our stand as a genuine certifiers, and not to be invited by them, or to be second class by the non-Muslim certifiers, especially governments.
Thank you so much.
That
Thank
are
you so much.
using out their info.
Okay. So,
thank you, brother.
thank you so much. So, Mr. Ihsan, I know you're in the plane, but listening to everyone, and since you are a standardization organization worldwide, What's your opinion on this? After listening to
Very
everybody,
much.
after listening
Thank you. Thank you.
after listening to everybody, what do you think? What do you think will be a good opinion or a good recommendation from your organization that we know that it's a global, and that the objective is to unify the practices and regulate it?
Yes. Thank you very much. As you well know, we are a small institution. We are working for the first priority for IC members and other Ummah. We are working with members and the other stakeholders developing standards for different issues, for food stuff, from food, halal food to halal management, halal certification, halal adaptation, and some details like food additives, animal feeds, gelatin, etc., tourism, development standards. These all are for all of them, not just for YC. In our policy, we are not saying YC country. We say Ummah, we have to serve that. These standards, first priority standards, to look at the consensus, all the different mazhabs and other groups and different parts of the world, they agree on the in a level, standard level. It means, for example, in details about slaughtering, about the haram, halal, non-halal issues. All mazhab agree on which issue we are reflecting stance. But we are not looking at the differentiation, not looking at deviation or some concern of the other. Other it concern if the majority, which mazhab they can do edit. We cannot finalize this. We cannot reach the issues and more than 14th century people are discussing. Some eating something, the other eating not others. But here, in Allah Quran, what is halal, what is not halal is already mentioned in the Quran, and it's very clear. Our responsibility is starting from there. We cannot directly, easily to say this is halal, this is not halal. We need research. We need check it. We need be assurance. For example, for the slaughtering of the animals, chicken especially, a lot of methods are using. Which is halal is our responsibility to find a solution to answer the Muslims. Because the animal or the birds should be survive till slaughtering. If animal died before slaughtering, it's not halal. It's a maita, it's haram, it's a najaset. But we see that many countries using the different methods, pistol or gun or gas or etc. All of that is bring a lot of suspect, and then our responsibility is very huge to answer the question of this community, because it's something in our shoulder. We are till now we are so answered all questions. We have 20 halal standards for all ummah. Inshallah, slowly, we will be more unified. Not easy to be unified because we are talking about the 14th centuries. Muslims every time separate. Sometimes now the country are bring separations. Another political separations. Not easy to be be more unified, but we have to do something. As in the OIC level, we establish a new authority for the recognition issues. Till now, like many union, like World Halal Food Council, Food Council, they meet, discuss the issue. But here, all are certification bodies that not represent the government, not represent the other authorities. With good intent, they sit and discusses. But they never solve any political issues. They just help each other. But we want to solve the issues with the governments and bring a real answer, and how trade will be more easy, and how the people, Muslims, will eat halal. Because halal is our must, like a praying. We cannot ignore. And you cannot be out of agenda. Oh, this meet is meet. We cannot say because our exams, our imtihan is with meet. Like other religions have different examinations, but in Allah in Quran says in Maida is the last surah, Maida 3 says first of the surah is about what is halal, what not halal, and then second part of the ayat is about it says this is my last verse. It means when this finished the Quran, he says what is halal, this it not be eaten. It's clear everything. May sometimes how we pray daily 5 times. Halal issues is very important than like our daily prayer and our like Hajj and others. And the other things, halal is a human right of Muslim. We have to ask other people to respect our halal rights, because otherwise I'm not Muslim. If I'm not have to have a halal chance life, halal life, I have no chance pray. I have no chance for wudu. I have no chance for eat meat. It means as a human right, somebody finished or cut it or stopped my right. And together we have to fight against for our halal life and halal things. This is short in my opinion. Thank you very
Thank you
much.
so much. Thank you, Mr. Ihsan. Appreciate it. And I think we appreciate your mission and on how to standardize the halal globally. I know you've been going around the world trying to make sure that we have a standard, and like you and other like Jakim and other organizations who are objective to make sure that we have the regulation that we go by. Now, I don't want to take much of the time, but I do have the final word from each one. If anybody has a final, before we get into the Q&A, we have a few questions from the audience. And if anybody has anything to say before we jump to the Q&A. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I wanted to comment that I really liked what Sister Dewi was telling us about the ASEAN countries, and also pointing out that standardization does not necessarily mean that there's got to be uniformity. And that's one of the things that, alhamdulillah, here in Canada, uh, many people may not know this, but the major certifiers are all working together, right, to a certain capacity. So, for example, like I have Brother Musaab here, right? HMA and ISNA had signed an MOU, 2 years ago or something like that. We signed an MOU with Fancy. We signed an MOU with HMCA. So the idea is that at least, there are going to be areas of difference, but there's a lot of areas of commonality. And there's much more in common than there are differences. So this is like the first step. Although here in Canada, back in 2014, then back in 2019, attempts were made to try and come up with one standard for the entire country. I myself was one of the individuals that wrote out the document. But unfortunately, what happened is that although a lot of people signed on to it, the next step of implementation and the processes and so forth was just not followed through because everyone is just super busy, right? Because at the end of the day, it requires a committed amount of people to make this a reality. And unfortunately, we just couldn't find those committed people because everyone's got too much on their schedule. So these attempts have been made. So since those 2 attempts were made back in 2014 and 2019, and we couldn't really see anything come through with it, this is the next best thing. The certifiers are working with each other, even though in not all areas, but in majority of areas, and that's one of the major steps forward of making halal easier upon the Muslim consumer here in Canada, inshallah. And so that's something I would also encourage in other areas of the world, inshallah. That yes, there are differences, but the difference is only this much versus the areas where we're overlapping, it's much more.
MashaAllah. Thank you so much, Sheikh Omar, for your input. Anybody else have something to say before we go into the Q&A? Okay. So now there are a couple of questions. I think there is let me see. Okay, there's a question here. It said, why halal certification in the Philippines have different categories in selection, like halal certification for Malaysia only. Middle East is another certification needed, not acceptable in Malaysia. I repeat, why halal certification in the Philippines have different categories in selection, like halal certification for Malaysia only. Middle East is another certification needed, not acceptable in Malaysia.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's a very nice question, and that is true. So the question is why? The reason is we are being divided by circumstance. You know how Muslims were defeated before. The problem is divide and conquer. This is also to divide the Ummah, the Muslims, the certifiers, and we are conquered by secular process. So that is how it is. Some government, for example, like in the Middle East, they accredit certain certifying body. So only this certifying body is accepted in Dubai, for example, in the UAE, and that certifier is to me it's not a certifying body. It is a that is a conformity assessment body, only to conform to the process, the regulation of that country. But it's not. They are not talking about halal. But what happened here is that conformity assessment body is the one now being supported by our government, so that they are the one magnifying the issue that they are the one accepted. But unfortunately, some of their products later on were rejected in other countries because they did not, they have the same different certification standards and process. That's what happened there. We are victimized by the Islamization process by non-Muslims, and our Muslim countries are also coming in to divide us more of selective acceptance of their of their imported products. That's what happened.
Thank you so much, Tony, for answering the question. The second question is to Canadian certifiers. Each one can answer it separately. Question for Canadian certifiers: why is the priority trying to unify the global standard rather than first unifying halal certification across Canada? Sheikh Omar starting.
I think that would be more of a question for yourself, Brother Nasser. Here in Canada, like I just had mentioned, that attempts have been made. Once again, in 2014 and the other in 2019. So attempts have been made. Okay, we were not able to pull through the way we wish to. However, this is the next best thing, is certifiers are now working with each other in areas where they have commonalities. Right. So, and I think that that's in a much better place than where we would have been 10 years ago. So I think that's the best effort. That's the next best thing, inshallah. And hopefully we plan to continue to grow relationships between all the major certifiers, inshallah.
Inshallah. I mean, this is something that we all aim for, because at the end we are all brothers and we all want to work together for one objective, is to provide for our generations to come halalan tayyiban, halal food for everybody, and that's an halal, lifestyle. That's what we are hoping to achieve. Musaab, you have anything to say about that question?
My answer would not be much different from Sheikh Omar Subedar's, because as he mentioned, we are working together on various projects, and we have signed MOUs, and we are working together to work on this common grounds.
Interesting. So, like I said, we're hoping. I mean, this is as in the beginning when Sheikh Omar said this is abroad, and this is something that but we trying to somehow reach slowly as we keep meeting together and discussing and bringing international perspective to this topic. It's one day that we will be. I wouldn't say maybe unified was a very very broad word in that particular, but we tried at least to follow the international standard, and work together with like, as I know that some of you work with SMIIC and works with Jakim, and get trained, and adapt some of their standards to their practice. We hope that to get more and more, and get like those association to come more to Canada and involve with the Canadian market, and hopefully achieve that. I know Argentina is working hard as well in this particular side. I'm sure Singapore is working very closely with Malaysia and other neighboring country. We still need more from here in Canada. I think if anybody disagree or agree, but this is something that I feel as a Muslim Canadian, that we need more involvement from the international to help us further elevate the standard of halal. Is
If
anybody?
Brother Nasser, if I could just comment on these two questions. The earlier one, there was a second part to it, which asked about, why certain Middle East countries are not recognized or not accepted in Malaysia. I think first point we need to know is that recognition is usually done on an application basis. So if they're not recognized now, they're not listed in the list of recognized CBs, doesn't necessarily mean that, it will not be recognized forever. It's just that, perhaps there has not been an attempt to formally submit, a request for recognition. So what can be done as businesses is to work with your certifiers or your government agencies, and to tell them that, hey, I'm looking to these markets. It's important to be, to be recognized, and therefore, work towards it. Okay, so that's one part. The other part is relating to Canada. Why, is the priority in trying to unify global standards as opposed to starting locally? Somehow, that is just how things has evolved. If we were to look at the Australian, halal industry, halal, what happened is that, for the last many years, we see halal certification bodies springing out, 1, 2, and 3. Right, a few of them, and usually these certifiers come about because to facilitate companies that are looking at exporting their countries, exporting their products, and because there's an export element, therefore there's always this question on whether the products will be recognized in other countries. So that was how the the halal history has sort of evolved, starting with, getting the standards to be globally or recognized in the markets that they're looking at. But of course, now we're talking about $1 trillion market, as in countries itself, maybe 1 or 2 certifiers, but now we are seeing more and more, 9, 10 certifiers. So this is when, the governments or the certification bodies themselves within those countries start to look at, hey, there's so many of us, can we look at harmonization? There are different standards and all that. Yeah. So of course, theoretically, it'll be good. You can sort of unify it, nationally and then be going globally. But, that is how, historically things have evolved. And I think what Canada has done is really putting itself on the right track of, coming up with guidelines and bringing the ones who are, have been there long and trying to bring together the certifiers and to agree to a kind of common guidelines. Perhaps the next step to that would be, working with the government to sort of get them to recognize or to accredit certifiers. And why I say sometimes it's important to get the government. I know that perhaps Brother Rahman, Linzag may not agree with me. Reason why? Because halal at the end of it involves trade. When there are issues of trade and export of products overseas, usually the governments would have to come in, government within government, they would have to discuss and to try to facilitate and to reduce those trade barriers via various government platforms like free trade agreements and all that. Yeah. So, but before that happens, the non-government organization or the certifieds would have to come together, agree on a kind of common a set of guidelines, and then move it up a bit further to sort of go into a recognition or accreditation model, and then that is how things can evolve and eventually allow for a more seamless and facilitation of trade of products from countries to countries. Yeah.
Louis, it's a very good point. I really appreciate that. This is a very good point that you brought up, and I think it's I think most of us agree on this that we need to work together and
Yeah,
more.
if I can just also add, Sister Dewi, I love your insight. Mashallah, there's a lot that you've brought to the table here. And the suggestion that you put there, that's already been attempted and is continuously being attempted here of engaging government agencies like the CFIA and Agri-Foods Canada. I myself had a meeting with them just around 2 months ago about this whole issue about standardization and so forth. So, given that it's a secular government, they really don't want to get too involved inside anything that's of a religious nature, given that there's so much opportunity for interpretation. And look, in this country, since we're liberal here, you don't even have to believe in a single tenet of Islam and still claim you're Muslim, and you have to honor that. So that's the complications that we have. But yes, attempts are continuously being made. I'm saying this for the benefit of those who are attending right now and watching this. Behind the scenes, attempts are being made, and if not today, maybe tomorrow. Hopefully, it's just a matter of persistence. Inshallah, with this newfound approach of ours of all these certifieds working together, hopefully we'll be able to reach that one day, inshallah.
Inshallah, ya Rabbi, inshallah. Is anybody else have any? We have no questions yet until now, but if you have anything to say before we end this session, and I put my final remarks on this.
I would like to suggest, if may possible, Brother Nasser, to have comments after this webinar from the audience for what they take from our conversation that could improve in our international meetings once the halal certification body we met, to have their comments about what they think that as Muslim consumers, even they are not in the business of halal, or if they are in the agency of halal, as halal certification bodies or not, I think that the comments are value, because always, even at the beginning or at the end, our purpose is for the Muslim consumers, no matter from to which destination. So
we are working on that. We are recording this and we're gonna publish it, and we're gonna also make attempt to make some surveys to ask our audience what they think. Because at the end of the day, it's just a starting point. We never finish. We need to continue until we achieve the common objective. Before I move to my final remarks, does anybody else have any questions or anything? Okay, I just want to thank all the panelists today. I really appreciate the time. I know some of you have to go to bed, some of us have to go to work, and I appreciate that that you came with us to support us in this important topic that we never finish, because we need to continue talking about it until we achieve the objective. I want to thank each one of you for coming today to join us. I will look forward to seeing you again, either in Canada or in the rest of the world. I'm gonna be in the Philippines soon as well.
Okay, thank you, brother.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody, and good night for some, and have a nice day for others. Thank you, everyone, and I appreciate it. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Thank you. Ihsan, have a safe trip.
Thank you very much.
I feel bad for you. I'm so sorry about that, and I'm sorry about Musaab being sick.
No problem.
I
Thank
appreciate
you.
you.
Welcome, brother Ihsan. Nice flight.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Inshallah. Thank
Good,
you,
good
brother
night.
Omar.
Good morning. Good night.
Dewi,
Assalamu
and,
alaikum.
See you, Sheikh Abdul
yes,
Rahman.
yes.
Everyone. Take
Assalamu
care.
alaikum.
Okay. Waalaikumsalam warahmatullah.